Alright, in the last video we learned how we could move objects around by using the Select and Move tool. And we move things around using the gizmo, and we move things around using the spinners. And we learned how to zero things out by right-clicking on top of the spinners. Now, let's take a look. What if you wanted to rotate that around? Well, your next tool right next to the Select and Move tool would be the Select and Rotate tool. Click on that and you get a different gizmo. And here you'll see that you've got various axes. Here we go on the y-axis. Once again, if I go back, if I want an instant undo, I can just right-click while I'm still holding down my left click. I have not moved my finger, but I can right-click. It'll go back to 0. All right. Oh, back. It'll undo what I just did. Let's put it that way. Okay. I could move along this axis. I could move along this axis here. This is the z-axis. Or in between, I can move that kind of free form anywhere or around the outside like that. Once again, I could center things just the way I did when I had select and moved, just by holding my cursor over the spinners, those are the up and down arrows, over the spinners, and right-clicking. And I'll get myself right back to 0 position. I could, of course, put in a coordinate. Let's say we'll just type in 4, whatever 4 is, right? And there it is. That was 4 degrees, I'm assuming. Let's do something a little bit more drastic. How about if I was to type in, let's say 26. I just needed it to be absolutely 26. And enter. There it is. Now it's 26. In addition to rotating and moving, we can make things bigger and smaller. That's kind of cool. So right next to that is the Select and Uniform Scale tool. Once again, that means you could select something, but also use the scaling tool. So the scaling tool is kind of cool. You can see right here, we start with this golden triangle in the middle, and that's sort of an everything. It's just going to make everything bigger or smaller. Right-click to undo what I was doing. We can go just on the z-axis to stretch things out or flatten them. On the y, or the x, or some combination. Therein. Now you got to be a little bit careful, because you know how on the last ones we could zero things out. If you zero things out here, they get real small. Okay, so here we'll put this more back at, let's say 100. That will get us right exactly where we were. On the other hand, if let's say we wanted it to be just 120. There you go. Now that you got, and it's percentages, of course, so that's 120% of what it was before, or back here to 100. That's 100% of what it was, or let's say 80. Now that's 80% of what it was, etc. We'll go back to 100% of what it was. There you go. All right, so we've had the Select and Move tool, kind of cool. We've got the Rotate tool, kind of cool. We've got the Scale tool, kind of cool. All right, now I'm going to show you one that's really cool. So I'm going to move myself around in the viewport. Remember, I'm not moving an object. Moving myself is different. So if you remember from before, if I want to rotate around, all I have to do is hold down my Alt key and my center wheel, and I can rotate around myself here, around that teapot. Or I could rotate around a different object. I can pan just by holding down that mouse key, and I can zoom. Okay, let me show you another one that's kind of cool. So right next to the select and uniform scale is the select and place. So if you want something right on top of something else, you can push this one. Okay, now as I move this object, notice right here, this part of the gizmo, so to speak, this little, what would you call it there? I don't know what you call it, but it's the center point. It's denoting the center point. That's what everything moves around. Let's say when you have a gizmo, you see it's at that center point right there. Everything moves around that. Everything rotates around that. Okay, everything scales around that point. Anyway, so our select and place, we've got that. And I'm going to just move that by holding down my left key. Just move that around. And watch what happens when I intersect it. Oh, look at that on that teapot. And you see how it starts climbing up the side of it. Right there, wherever I put it. So if I want this teapot to sit exactly, oh, can I do it? Onto that top of that teapot. There it is. Okay, and so that is the select and place tool. Once again, kinda cool.